We got the hot stove league has been cooking, maybe simmering, some might say, at certain times, but cooking along the way. So I'm Jeff.
I'm Kim.
And nobody else is around this morning, but this is a Three Old Reds Fans podcast anyway, coming to you from Studio 82 down the street from our good friends at Beans in the heart of Cedarville. Of course, as you well know, the famous birthplace and final resting place of Reds pitching legend Bumpus Jones. It has been a while since we got together. Busy lives, all kinds of stuff. And, of course, it's the off season, but there's been plenty to talk about. We're going to try to do that today and see what we catch up on. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. If you just found us, please subscribe so those new ones will show up and you'll be able to listen and catch up with all our attempts at sounding intelligent about baseball. And remember, we've got a Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at 3 Old Reds Fans. That's the number 3 Old Reds Fans. And you can do the same search on Facebook. So it is January, late January. Pitchers and catchers report in a little under 3 weeks. The Reds have done a decent amount of stuff in the offseason. Have they scored really big? Not necessarily, but they certainly seem to have improved this team. So I'll ask you, Kim. It's just us. Tom can be with us today, but we're going to try to dial him up on the phone here in a little bit, see if we can find him. And he said he was busy today and couldn't get here. And we just decided 3 weeks out we got to get together and talk about some stuff and get something going. So what is the most intriguing or interesting or whatever move that the Reds have made in the offseason that what's the first one you feel like you want to talk about that sort of intrigues you the most?
Yeah, to me, Jeff, it's almost like two different questions. The one that comes immediately to mind is the acquisition of Moustakas. Mm-hmm. The reason I hesitated, you used the word intriguing, and I think of the acquisition of Shogo Akiyama, and from here on out I'll just call him Shogo, as we probably will be calling him.
As the show goes on, we'll call him Shogo.
That's right, and maybe we can have him on the show sometime. Our first Japanese guest. Might be our first guest, hadn't it? Almost. But and with the acquisition of Shogo becomes I don't know if logjam's the appropriate word, but the crowded outfield is probably an accurate description of what will the Reds be doing. And as you and I were talking yesterday, we met for lunch. We have a feeling we may not be done. We have a feeling we may see another movement, so to speak, of an outfielder. Strictly conjecture. We don't know.
Yeah, there's the Nicholas Castellanos rumors.
He's out there.
That's the thing.
He's out there. Holt's out there. But that's, again, that's not a everyday player, so to speak. So those two things immediately come to mind.
Okay. And I think, because I think Shogo, that's a little more intriguing because of he's coming from Japan. Mm-hmm. He's a good on-base guy over there. He showed a little power over there. He can play multiple outfield positions. Yep. He's experienced. And what's he going to be like? It feels like a guy in some ways, there's this guy in AAA we're going to make a starter this year without ever seeing him at the major league level. Now, they say Japanese ball is more like 4A. It's sort of in between AAA and the majors. So, and he's older. He's got a lot of experience. So I would expect him to be productive to a degree. How
right.
What's he going to be is hard to say, right?
Right.
And so, it's a crowded outfield right now, and it could become more crowded. But if they do sign a guy like Castellanos, then it probably uncrowds somewhere else because mm-hmm. somebody's going to go. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you would think something like that would happen if they signed him, but it's crowded now. At the end of spring training, will it seem as crowded?
Right.
Does if all those guys, if and we feel like Senzel, Winker, and Akiyama are definite guys, barring any trades. We feel like Aquino is maybe. It's hard to know. I think Van Meter's really a utility backup guy going into this year. Seems like that kind of guy. Play a little bit outfield, but not really seem like one of these outfielders. And then, there's this Phil Irvin that's hanging out there. I think he's the odd man out. But we don't know what we're going to get from some of these guys. We just don't. And so it may seem crowded now, but things tend to work themselves out. So it'll be interesting to see. And your guess is as good as mine and anybody else's of how it's all going to work out and play out, and who are going to be the three guys that get the around 500 or more at bats. If there are indeed three guys do, because injuries could create a havoc with that. But with guys staying healthy, who are those guys that do that? And I think based on prospect status and what we expect to translate to the major league level, I think most people, maybe not Tom, he hadn't proven anything yet, but Senzel is probably the guy you think, okay, if anybody's going to have a breakout year, he's sort of the top prospect to do that. But who knows?
Jeff, one other thing that is intriguing about the acquisition of Shogo is he's a lefty. And so we have Winker and we have Shogo, and the thought has been, okay, when we face a right-handed pitcher, we'll have Winker in left and Shogo in right. When we face a left-handed pitcher, will we have Shogo in left and Aquino in right? But what about Irvin? There's just so many what ifs out there. But the fact that he is a lefty and he's a hitter, and you go and you look at Winker's stats, and Winker is a hitter.
Yeah, it's just the whole left-hander. Can he hit left-hander thing? That's the thing holding him back.
Those two right now are just what I look at as hitting machines. You want to teach young kids the proper batting stance, eye contact, back elbow up, follow through. You would look at someone like a Winker at his style and his stance. Injuries, where we're going to be with injuries. You talk about the end of spring training. We talked about starters last year. We've got this, or that. Well, Alex Wood's back acted up. And what did he make? Maybe 4 starts, and that was it?
Something
He's
like
back
that.
in L.A.
It wasn't very many.
So who's to say with the injury situation, the illness situation for Senzel, the injury situation for Winker, we may be down to just 3 and you need someone else out there. Right. So we will see how that plays out here in the next several weeks.
Right. You can't have too much talent. So, the Reds have really seemed like a team to be, this new leadership group led by Dick Williams, Nick Krall. They're aggressive. They're trying to do things. They obviously, if reports are true, they really tried to sign Ozuna. Mm-hmm. He chose a different path. You try to make trades with teams. I think they have. I bet you that I would be shocked if they haven't offered the Indians something for Lindor, the Dodgers something for Seager. They've been involved in talks.
And Didi Gregorius.
They went after him. But not everybody wants to come play for you for whatever reason. And you can't always work the trade out, Right. And then I think the Indians, in the case of Lindor, I think is a prime example of a team that has a guy who's getting close to free agency, and it's like, let's just see what somebody might be willing to part with. Is somebody going to do Mike Ditka and trade the entire franchise for Ricky Williams? Right? Is somebody going to do that? Nobody is. The price is too steep. And I would, if I had a Francisco Lindor and 2 more years of control, I'd ask for the moon too. What'll be interesting is if they do end up trading him, it'll be closer to the time and it becomes more of a buyer's market than a seller's market. And right now for them, it's a seller's market, right? They can get what they can ask. And the closer it gets to that, the less they can ask for. So that'll be interesting to see whatever happens with all that. And so, if the Reds could get a shortstop that's going to get 5 or 6 wins above replacement type of guy, that changes things. But
And we know right now with Galvis, we don't have that.
We don't have that. No, he's a 1 at best, probably. And that's not much different than really. I mean, there's some things I like about Iglesias over Galvis, but in the end, Iglesias is mostly a singles type hitter and probably had his best year of his career, and to think he could repeat that is stretching it, I think. And so either way, they had decided to go. That I don't think it's that sort of like guy who's going to bat 7th or 8th anyway.
I will miss him.
He was fun to watch.
I look at right now between Galvis and Iglesias, who would I want as my shortstop? Every time it would be Iglesias. I just his fielding and not the smooth and the acrobatic. I should say acrobatic. Just making all plays look easy, and I just look at the percentage. He cuts down on runs allowed, hardly any errors. I will miss him. I understand what the data says in regards to, as you said, a singles hitter. Yeah. But we talk about would he have another good year? We got to remember he was an American League All-Star about, 15 or 16. So he has done some things in the past as well. It just wasn't a well-known commodity.
No.
And I think some of those shortcomings that you talk about is the reason you haven't heard more from him.
Right. He's not a star shortstop. He's
close.
He can fill a gap. He's a starting shortstop. He's a legitimate big leaguer, and I was listening to a recent Red Leg Nation podcast, and one of those guys made a good point. We go back to in the early part of this decade when the Reds won 97 games in one year.
Last decade?
Well, last decade now, or part of 12th or whichever year it runs together. But the point is, they won 97 games one year with like Drew Stubbs and Zach Cozart in the lineup, hitting, not being good offensive players, not at all. And so that's not to say, let's try to. You still always try to upgrade every position, but that doesn't mean, if Freddie Galvis is our shortstop, we can't win anything. It doesn't mean that. I mean, not at all, because every team's got weaknesses or less than ideal players that, everybody wants a guy that's great on defense, hits for power, gets on base, drives in runs, all this type of stuff, walks a lot. That's the ideal. Let's get this guy that does all these things. And if you could have 8 of those, you'd win the World Series. But it's hard to put that team together. So what you hope is that you have 3 or 4 guys that really play well and carry you. And if you think back to those teams, I mean, Jay Bruce, Joey Votto, those were guys who could get hot for long stretches and basically carry a team. And Suarez has shown a little bit of that at times. But last year, nobody carried this team. And you can't just do it by yourself either. You can't be great and everybody else be below average. You can't carry a team if you're the only one doing it. You got to have some guys being an average or a little above average, and then 1 or 2 guys that are way above average, and then you got something.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. So we're looking at that outfield. We know what the infield's going to be, barring any changes. And I like the signing of Moustakas. I mean,
I think we all do.
I think if Van Meter had played really well all the way through the end of the season, that might not have happened. But I'm glad they did it, because you can't bank on a guy like that. Give him some more time, and maybe he works out and becomes a Moustakas type player, because he sort of has some of that power, but you can't bank on it. So I'm glad to see them say, we're not just going to hope these guys all pan out next year. We're going to go out and find something. So I like that signing. It's not signing a superstar, but that's fine. Those are hard to find. I do think they've. Now, when Williams said recently, we're still in the market for doing stuff. Do you think? And the payroll is right about where it was last year right now, and they have said we'll spend more this year. To do that, if they're going to do that, they're going to sign a Castellanos. They're going to make a trade that brings in a $18 million contract or something like that, right? What's your gut tell you? You think something will happen, or you think we're pretty much looking at the team other than whatever happens with the bullpen? Are we set?
My gut tells me it's going to stay this way. My gut, I go back to Winker and Senzel. Those two are key. Let's just say they're healthy, I like our chances. If they stay healthy, I like our chances because of what Senzel has done at every level and what Winker has done to come up. If they stay healthy, do their thing, I'm wondering if that is the mindset of leadership. Because if Castellanos brought something to the table where he's great defensively, or even maybe average defensively, but as we know, he's below average defensively, or at least I think he is. And so with that, I'm thinking, okay, maybe they again. That's my gut, Jeff. To answer your question, I see it staying this way.
Well, I think if you were gonna bet on it, you'd have to bet that they don't, because that's typically the more likelihood. And I think the Rangers are interested in him, and the Rangers always seem to have money to spend.
They do.
And they spend it, and so he'll probably get a better offer.
And if we have that extra money, as you say, then we get closer to the trade deadline and the Reds are in it, that frees you up to see, okay, now that we're at this point, what are our glaring needs? Where's something we've been short on? We've got some money. Let's go out and get X, this position, and fill it.
And it could be finding that outfielder at that point if the outfield is... If we got an injury, if somebody, or two, or we're underproducing there, and we're not willing to call up Scott Schebler, so my man.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel, so he's still hanging around down there, but I don't think.
But it could be a position too, Jeff, that we're just, I'd love to have seen us upgrade the catcher position when nothing's become available, right? Went after Remuto really hard last year. I believe he went to the Phillies. That could, it could be a position that we're just not thinking of.
No, it could be. What if Votto really gets hurt? We need a first baseman. What if Galvis hurts? The thing I'm worried about the infield is I'm not sure we don't have a backup shortstop right now.
Hasn't Blandino played short too?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of you can put someone out there who's played the position. But your point, do we have someone who could come off like last year? We had Iglesias, and if he didn't play, you could put Peraza there, and then they got Galvis. So you had some guys who could play. There's definitely a drop off right now.
And what if a Galvis gets hurt?
Yep.
I hate to talk about guys getting hurt, but you got to think about that. So what the key is like if he has to sit for 2 months, do you have a guy who can play every day for 2 months in your system that's not gonna really drain your offense? You can find a guy to,
fill in for a week here and there.
For a week, but Jose Garcia is probably the best shortstop prospect they got, but he's not. He's a year or two away at least from getting to the big leagues. Blandino, I think those types of guys, they've got some major league experience, but I think he feels like a utility guy. It's hard to imagine somebody coming in, maybe hot for a week, but over the long haul, it's just hard to fathom that, to sit around and count on that. So this Brock Holt guy, I think, can play a lot of positions. That's name's been out there, a utility guy, kind of a better version of Kyle Farmer, maybe. And he's a guy that's still around, right? So what's his role? So it'll be interesting to see. But I think another interesting thing to think about is Votto, and what does Votto bring to the table this year? Is he going to be at least 2018 Joey Votto, or is he going to be like last year or worse? And if he is, wow, that hurts. But if he can hit up around 300, if his on base can be up around 400 again, and slug pretty well, at least hit a lot of doubles. I don't think we're going to see 30 home runs out of him again. But if he can at least be Last year he wasn't really even a shadow of himself, really. But if he can be more of that and batting in this 2-hole, that's huge for this team, I think. I'm not trying to say that team success is completely dependent on what Votto does, but that used to be something you could count on. Now you're not so sure. Mm-hmm. Now you're like, okay, I can count on Suarez. I feel like I can count on Moustakas.
Right.
I pretty much know what I'm going to get out of Freddie Galvis. I pretty much know what I'm going to get out of our catchers. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know really. I think I know what I'm going to get out of Senzel if he's healthy, right? Mm-hmm. We at least you and I think that. I think we know what Winker is if he's healthy. Mm-hmm. We don't really know what Aquino is yet.
We do not.
Irvin is okay. To me, he's not a regular everyday outfielder. Akiyama, yeah, we think we know, but there's still a lot of question marks. So there's a lot. There's reason for hope, which, as we know, is not a good strategy. But I think they could. I don't know. Last year we thought with this pitching we'll be a lot better, and the offense was terrible. I'm hopeful, optimistic that the offense will be better. I can't see it being any worse. But I think there's still a lot of question marks. Don't mean to be it's a rainy day. I don't mean to be Eeyore here, but I feel the more I talk about this offensive side of the team, I don't know, sometimes the less I feel good about it. And then I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll feel good and I'll feel better about it. I am just all over the place on what I think about this offense. It's like, man, if there was one more, if I knew Votto was still going to be Votto, like he was 32 years old, I'd feel like really good. Or if they had really gotten in a really big time bat, I'd feel really good. I just, I think some guys have to step up and have breakout kind of years. Senzel's got to be really good. Winker's got to stay healthy and at least hit right-handers really well and be part of a really good platoon system. And Akiyama cannot disappoint.
Right.
He can't disappoint. And Moustakas has to stay healthy and not disappoint. So,
right.
I mean, I guess every team faces that, but. Back to what Tom says. Well, you got to prove it, and there's. I feel like we've had teams, and if you go back to the early last decade, you had more proven talent in the lineup every day, and we're still not quite to where I feel like, I know what I'm going to get out of these guys. I still don't really know what I'm going to get out of two.
But to prove it, you got to get on the field.
You got to get on the field, and I'm
so
all for him playing.
With our friend Tom. No one would ever. We'll never have a rookie of the year if Tom were general manager. We said, and Jeff, I look at contextually where we are. Okay, we had a better record last year than 2 years ago. I think what I said the other day, the over/under on the Reds wins this year is about mid-80s.
Yeah, I've seen anywhere from 83 to 85 different projections,
which is better than last year. And I think this is why I say it's key. Winker and Senzel being healthy and doing their thing. Votto, is it possible he will go up? Yes. Is it probable? The data tells us no.
Well, he's not going to be
the human age tells us no.
He's not going to be 2017 when he finished second MVP vote. I don't expect that, but I don't think we need that. We just need better. We just need
get on base,
above average.
Get on base, not make outs, move guys over, and get your hits. But I think Winker and Senzel are key, and I think Moose, if he can do what he did in Milwaukee, we will take it. We will take it by and large. Yeah. And then we haven't talked too much about it, but we're sitting here not talking about the pitching because the pitching was outstanding last year. Well, the hitting was outstanding 2 years ago, so we weren't talking about hitting, then it went down. We need our pitching to, at worst, be collectively as it was last year. So individually, we need Castillo to not take a step back. If anything, go up a little bit. We need Sonny Gray to be like he was last year and maybe even a little bit better. We need Trevor Bauer to be what he was before he came to Cincinnati. We both think he will. And then we need DeSclafani to pitch like he did last September, not July and August. We need Miley. Miley has had a good career. And then we've got Molly. We've got those six. And last year at this time, we're figuring out where is one of these guys going to be because we've got so many good pitchers. Again, Wood, I think 4 starts last year. So those 6 right there have to collectively perform like we did last year, like we saw last year, and individually, no precipitous drop-offs.
All right, good. All right, I am going to try to call Tom. See if he answers.
Maybe we can be like a radio show and ask him a question.
It's ringing. I told him I was going to try to call him. He's not answering.
He's not awake.
Oh, well, he better be out of bed.
It's 7:40 Pacific Standard Time. He's not awake.
I don't think that's where he is.
Hello, this is Tom Sizer.
All right, he didn't answer. All right. So maybe he'll see.
He could have been our first radio guest.
Maybe he'll see the missed call. Maybe he'll see the missed call and call me back. So we'll see. Anyway, yeah, I think that's the thing. You can't get too. You feel satisfied with the starting rotation, and then stuff can go wrong. Guys can get hurt. Alex Wood, we were really counting on last year, got hurt, but it really didn't hurt the rotation. I mean, it did. It did. We if he's healthy and pitching well, it's a better rotation.
I was excited more about any of the players that we acquired last year, Alex Wood, than I was Puig or anyone else because of what Wood brought to the Dodgers, and he didn't pan out. Unfortunately,
didn't work out. And I hope the best for him, and he pitches well. He bounces back. Bullpen. I've been hearing a lot about, what are they going to do to strengthen the bullpen? Well, I think they're in the same boat as most teams are. You got the top front half of your bullpen.
All right, so tell our listeners who the front half of the bullpen would be.
Well, it's Iglesias, it's Lorenzen, it's Garrett. Those, I think, are the big 3. I think Stevenson is a guy we can count on. Am I forgetting somebody else? But those are the 4. You tend to have 4 guys that you rely on in the big situations.
Well, we talked yesterday, too, about Cody Reed. We're hoping he will... I think he's
out of options, and if he's healthy, he's got the talent. You put him out there, and he might have a season like Stevenson had last year.
And then we still have, I believe, Sims on the roster.
Lucas Sims could be in the bullpen. Molly has options. If he doesn't, if those other 5 guys, those veterans, are all healthy, we'll start the season with those 5 guys in a rotation. If one of them is not ready at the start of the season for minor injury or major injury, whatever, Molly's becomes the obvious 5th guy.
Yeah. So
does he start the season in the minors, pitching every 5th day, or do they use him out of the bullpen at the major league level? I don't know. With options left, they probably send him down. That seems to be the way people do things. But I'm like, what good does it do to face AAA hitters anymore? That's part of me. It's like, I'd rather see him facing major league hitters, but that's just my opinion. I don't know if that's a good opinion or not, but I don't know. That's just what I think. There were some other guys they had last year up in the bullpen. We don't have to go through all the names, so we know who they are. And they've signed some guys to minor league contracts that have had some success in the past. High round picks, had success. Nate Jones, this guy Thornburg, just another guy the other day. All these different names. You don't lose anything by signing that. You're just paying a minor league salary. See if they can make the team, and if they do, then they make the minimum probably.
Well, here's why I am more confident about our pitching staff this year. You've got year 2 of Johnson, the pitching coach. Yeah. What he was able to do, and one time I think I've said this before. Doug Collins, NBA announcer, he talked about the fine line between success and failure, and that fine line is confidence. And he goes, it's amazing how many people go up and how many people go down because of that very fine line, and how little incidents can or instances make you or break you. And I think last year with Sonny Gray, he had a good first start or 2. As we remember, the Reds had no offense for seemingly like 3 to 4 weeks. And Sonny Gray pitched well. And then when he didn't pitch well, and then as the season progressed, for the first few starts, when he wouldn't have a great start, the team maybe got more runs, but it wasn't enough. I'm thinking having Sonny Gray a second year under Johnson, Castillo, all these pitchers, and I really think Molly this year, even though he's right now, at least for our discussion, Jeff, a number 6 pitcher, all things remaining the same, all the guys are healthy, I think this is really a make it or break it year for Molly. I really think he's got a good chance to substantially improve this year with another year in off season under Johnson. And who's the guy that we hired? The analytics guy.
Oh, Bodie.
Yes.
The guy from Driveline.
Yes, from Driveline.
I don't know what all he's. How is he personally involved with guys? Is he more behind the scenes? I don't know what his contributions exactly are, but
I'm just more confident.
And Bauer's a student of his, and you've heard some things about Bauer, his personality and everything, but I think from a teammate standpoint, people, at least with the Reds, I think there's a lot of respect there because he's a hard worker, and he did not pitch well. I think his first couple starts weren't too bad for the Reds.
No.
He was like, okay, he's pretty good, and then he was a
Went
mess.
down.
He was a mess. His ERA was up over 8 there for a while. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what that effect has. I think you just continue to build, and last year you were talking about projected number of wins, and nobody would go out on a limb last year and say this team is going to finish over 500, and they finished about like what people thought. They won 75 games. This year, now people are talking in those mid 80s. You get a little lucky, a few things, you get some breaks, a few things go your way, you stay really healthy. You only have a couple blown saves versus, I don't know how many blown saves they had last year, but it was too many. I'd have to look that up, but it was too many. All of a sudden, 4 or 5 more wins than you're expecting, and you're up around 90 because some things broke your way. I can't see this team breaking out big and go win in 97 games. I would be wonderful. I don't see it happening, but if they're in the mid 80s, they're in the hunt. If you can at least get to a wild card, that brings the fans back. That makes us happier. Our goals should always be do what you can to make yourself as good as you can to give yourself a World Series chance. That should always be every team's focus. I know there's rebuilding stages that you have to go through sometimes, but once you come out of that as they have, that's got to be like, what do we do to make ourselves good enough to get to a World Series? Now, I know in the baseball playoffs anymore, it's like you get in, you got a chance because just the way things go.
Short series.
And we have potentially enough good starting pitching that if they're hot at the right time, they can win series. Now, you never know. I mean, sometimes guys have great seasons and get to the playoffs and don't pitch that well. And that happens. I don't know if it's wearing down or getting tired or what, but it happens. And there's more pressure there. So this team has not had much. There's very little postseason experience on this team. So if they get there, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I'll take my chances.
Too, last year, I remember so many tweets from people who have the data in front of them. And the run differential projected that the Reds should have had, let's say, 5 more wins than we did. And that's probably being generous. I think it was more than 5. And so you don't want to be that fan who says everything went against us. But we certainly had a lot go against us last year. So all things being equal, the run differential, if it plays out the way you think it would, not getting into a 3 to 4 week funk start offensively, and the Johnson a second year with him, I really am more excited about the season than I have been since probably around 2012.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that I don't know if it's a make or break kind of year, but I think it is a year where come August, come September, we really are caring about what happens. And we got closer to that last year, and then we had a slump there and really fell out of it. But it was like striking distance into June, and then July came after the All-Star break. We didn't play very well for a while and really fell off the pace. And after that, it doesn't really matter what happens after that so much. Once you're out of it, you're out of it.
Right.
What's the difference?
Right.
In baseball, it's sort of that way. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic. I feel good about the starting pitching. I feel good about at least the mainstays in the bullpen.
Yeah. I
feel like they've identified a bunch of guys they're bringing in. If you can find a couple guys to really, think about what was it a couple years ago when they brought in Hughes and Hernandez and they really performed well that year. If you can, now last year didn't go so well for them, but if you can find a couple guys who can give you a Hughes and Hernandez kind of a year like a couple years ago to go with the other guys and they stay healthy and Garrett doesn't take on the Pirates dugout and get suspended for 2 weeks or whatever it was, that hurt. Those things, then I think pitching is solid. It's like we got some good offensive players. Guys have to step up. I don't know what's going to happen with them. I want to be confident in all that. I think there's certainly an opportunity for the offense to be much better, but I don't know. I'm going to wait and see on whether we're going to really. I think we'll be better offensively than we were last year. I don't think we can be that any worse. I think they will be better. Question is it going to be good enough? I guess that's where I am. I expect improvement. Will it be enough to win 85 games and be in the hunt?
And let's talk contextually within the division. You improved your team by getting a player by the caliber of Moustakas, right?
Yeah, you've improved.
At the same time, you weakened one of the teams in your division, Milwaukee. Chicago hasn't really done that much this offseason. They re-signed Chris Bryant to a one-year deal, got a new manager, so you're kind of hopeful there. St. Louis lost Ozuna, right? Now they did pick up someone earlier. They signed someone earlier. I can't remember who right off the top of the bat.
I know what you're talking about.
But I think St. Louis is the team in the division who you look at and you say, okay, they really haven't taken a major step back.
They always find
if they've
a way.
taken a step
They always
back.
find a way to be there. I don't know what it is. It's disgusting, but they always find a way to be there.
So I'm thinking within Division 2, we've strengthened our chance. And last year the division was at best. And that's probably why we were in it, because the division was not that good. So hopefully, with another year of the division opponents not strengthening themselves, but the Reds have strengthened themselves, gives me hope.
Close the gap a little bit, and so...
And hopefully more in a little bit, right?
Yeah, hopefully more in a little bit. But they have, on paper, closed the gap. Now, it's all on paper. But that's why we sit here and talk about it, because it's kind of fun. So, opening day lineup, I think everybody's expecting Akiyama to be a leadoff hitter. And I would think you would play him opening day.
Yep,
I agree. I would think you would.
Unless something happens in spring training that throws us, as we sit here almost 2 months to the day of opening season, right?
Right.
Yes, I would say he would be our leadoff hitter starting.
Right, it'll be that Thursday in March, last week of March.
26th
something like that. They moved that all up. You're right.
Burr.
Yeah, it'll be cold. So you got Akiyama. I would expect Votto to bat second.
Right now, yes.
I don't know who's going to bat third.
Suarez.
Probably.
And then Moose fourth.
And probably Moose fourth.
Senzel fifth.
Yeah, that's.
And then if it's a righty, Winker sixth.
Could be Winker. It could be Aquino batting sixth at times. And then you're looking at Galvis, Barnhart, Casali, 7-8, 8-7. How you going to play them? I don't know how that's going to work out, but that's what it looks like. And I think Castillo will start opening day.
Yes, that'd be interesting to see, because you go with either he or Gray. Yeah.
But it's been Castillo's job. He hasn't done anything to lose it.
Well,
so
you called it last year.
You called it last.
Yes, you tell us a lot of things. You called it last year. But I would just say Gray exceeded what we all were expected, hoped for. And you saw that Sonny Gray, who was a Cy Young candidate for years when he was with Oakland and such. And so either one, right now at least, Castillo or Gray, I like him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wish I was going to Arizona with them, but I'm
One
not.
day. One day.
One day we will. One day we will go down to hang out down there and all the ballparks are within like 15 miles of each other or something, or 15-minute drives or something like that. So that would be fun to do one of these years and over spring break or something. So we will consider that down the road. But for now, I think we've pretty much covered what we need to cover. And we miss you, Tom. Of course, we knew what you were going to say anyway. No, I'm just kidding. Not completely. Not completely. We will see. And we'll be back as soon as possible. A couple weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a week into spring training when we see some things happening. Especially if the Reds make any more moves, we'll want to get back and talk about that. If they make a big deal, sign Castellanos, something like that, what does that make the team look like? And we'll be back to talk about those things. So appreciate you listening. Sorry for the long break. I know on the last show the sound was terrible. We had some technical issues. Apologize for that. I think this one I tested ahead of time. Should be good. We actually recorded another podcast that same day about pitching, and the audio was so bad we didn't want to put anybody through another one of those. So appreciate you listening through. And if you have comments, questions for us, things you want us to talk about next show, get on Twitter, get on Facebook, let us know. And we'd be happy to do it. If you just email, you can email 3oldredsfans@gmail.com as well. And
is that the number 3 old Reds fans?
The number 3 old Reds fans at gmail.com. We keep it simple. We don't make people spell the word 3. Although I'm sure Reds fans, as intelligent as they all are, can certainly spell the word 3.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, with that, we wish you a good rest of January and into February, and looking forward to spring. And as we always say, go Reds.